Morning, all. All right, so we're going to start the day off talking about the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche, a team that I believe are still a contender for the Stanley Cup. They have recently won a Stanley Cup. The question is, how do you get back and win another Stanley Cup? That's really the trick. That's really the trick that now Chris MacFarland needs to pull off, right? So after winning that first Stanley Cup, things have kind of gone back to where they were with the Avs prior to that Stanley Cup, having a hard time getting past round number two. But this is a team that absolutely can. I do think that there's a good chance they win another Stanley Cup for, Nathan MacKinnon and everybody. But there are a couple of question marks that we'll get to. But I want to take a look back through their recent history. And we go back as far as 2017, 2018, because that's where their run in the playoffs starts. 43, 30, and 9 record, 95 points. And that's after a pretty rough 2016, 2017 season. In the playoffs that year, they lost in the first round against Nashville in 6 games. Nashville, the President's Trophy winner in 2018, so no shame in losing to them in the first round. 2018, 2019, they finished 38, 30, and 14, 90 points, but they upset Calgary in the first round that year, and then lose against San Jose in a hotly contested 7-game series, which some people didn't like, some calls. There was some complaints about refereeing. It was 5 years ago. It was a completely different time. 2019, 2020, 42, 20, and 8 was their record, 92 points. Again, at the time of the pause. And then in the second round, they lost against Dallas 4-3. So 7-game series there. Dallas and Colorado pretty closely matched, same as this year. 2020, 2021, 39, 13, and 4 is the record, 82 points, which is remarkable considering it's only a 56-game schedule. Then in the playoffs, they lose in the second round against Vegas in 6 games. 2021, 2022, they finished 56, 19, and 7, 119 points, and they win a Stanley Cup. So 119 points, the most points they've put up out of during this run, and a Stanley Cup win. Everything looks great. The following season, so 2022, 2023, 51, 24, and 7 record, 109 points, and they get upset in the first round by the Seattle Kraken in 7 games. An absolute shocker of a first round upset by Seattle. And this year, early on against the Jets, and by early on, I mean the first game was like, well, maybe, but then, Colorado asserted themselves against Winnipeg. They finished the season 50, 25, and 7, 107 points. They lose in the second round against Dallas in 6. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about the losing against Dallas in 6 and 2 really key names to watch this summer and just see what their status is going into the fall. However, Nathan MacKinnon, the leading scorer for this team, again, he would be my heart vote if I had one. 51 goals, 89 assists, 140 points in 82 games. Mikko Rantanen in 80 games, 42 goals, 62 assists, 104 points. Not too shabby. And Cale Makar, 77 games, 21 goals, 69 assists, 90 points. I think the best defenseman of this generation. I think he and Quinn Hughes are right there with one another. But people, he's just good with MacKinnon. Okay, he had 90 points in 77 games, and he's a defenseman. Plus, defensively, he's pretty good. So, anyways, those are your top 3, and it's not a surprise to anybody that any of them are in the top 3. Not a lot of players 22 and younger that appeared for this team. Bowen Byram did, but of course they traded him to Buffalo. Jean-Luc Foudy, 4 games for him, one goal. Olesen, 1 game played by him. So, not a lot of action for the younger players. I don't think that changes this year either, like this year coming up, because most of the core of this team is still in its prime. We're not looking at guys in their early to mid 30s. So there's really not a lot of need to bring in a bunch of young guys. I think this is a pretty solid roster as is. However, goaltending is going to be interesting to watch over the summer. I think it stays the same, but Georgiev does have an expiring contract. He finished the season 38, 18, and 5. His .897 save percentage is below league average. In the playoffs, an .894 save percentage. It's dragged down by that first game against Winnipeg, of course. But overall, is Georgiev the goaltender that's going to get them to the Stanley Cup? Annunen, after a couple of tough call-ups he'd had previously, he had a good run this year. 8-4-1 record with a .928 save percentage. So the goaltending, if they stay with Georgiev and Annunen, that'll be good enough to get them into the playoffs, but is it good enough to win them a Stanley Cup? There can be an argument made that Jake Ottinger outplayed Georgiev in that series. And so, I do wonder if Colorado might consider some sort of a change. Odds are they may not, but again, when you have a team that's that close to being a Stanley Cup champion and you've had that taste of Stanley Cup silver over your head kind of thing, you probably are willing to do whatever it takes to get back there. Which speaks to the Gabriel Landeskog situation. He has not played for the team since they won the Stanley Cup in 2022. And he is their captain. He has a $7 million cap hit, which I'm pretty sure Cap Friendly doesn't take into account when they look at the cap space on July the 1st for next season. But I think rather than getting that ability to go out and replace his money, I think fans and I think the team would love to see Gabe Landeskog come back. In the event that Landeskog were able to return in the fall, and I'm saying if, because we know this is potentially career-ending, right? In the event that Landeskog's able to come back in the fall, that could be a huge boost to this team. And if Landeskog was in the lineup for these playoffs, who knows how that series would have gone? The same as if Valeri Nichushkin didn't get the 6-month suspension. Would they have come out flat in the game the day that was announced? They wouldn't have come out flat, I don't think, if Nichushkin was in the lineup. His cap hit 1.25 million, 6.125 million until 2030. If they decide to buy that out, they actually save money on the cap next year. The cap penalty doesn't really become an issue until 2 years down the road. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know that they buy him out. I don't know that it works for them. He's suspended until at least November. I don't know what they're going to do. But without Nichushkin and Landeskog, obviously that's 2 top 6 forwards for Colorado. Bringing in Casey Middlestad was meant to replace him, same as acquiring Ryan Johansson. The thought process was to get that top 6 forward they needed, but getting Landeskog back could potentially be huge for this team and could get them back to Stanley Cup level. But again, you have to keep moving forward. Chris McFarland's going to have to approach this as if he's not coming back, I would think, and just plan things out. And then the event Landeskog comes back, bonus, fantastic. Now, on the way, they do have a couple of prospects who may very well be pretty darn good. Callum Ritchie, center, and Mikhail Gulyayev, defenseman. That being said, now that they're in the win-now mode, not a lot of top-notch prospects coming up for the Colorado Avalanche. And again, they don't really need them. You know, McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, all still in their 20s. They don't really need that infusion of young talent just yet. But there are some pending unrestricted free agents here. Just a few. Cogliano, Drouin. Drouin's going to be interesting to see whether or not they re-sign him. I think it's in his best interest to return to Colorado. I think he played better in Colorado than he did in Montreal last year. Duhaime, probably just a rental. Kivi Ranta probably goes to market. Trennan, I would say the same. Jack Johnson, if he wants to come back, I'm sure they'll bring him back. If they want him back, I'm sure it won't be a problem. Caleb Jones probably goes to market. Sean Walker played well, but again, there's only so much money to go around, and I don't know if they're going to be the number one bidder for Walker. Olofsson, Tufte, former Dallas first-round draft pick, of course, and Brad Hunt, journeyman defenseman, pending unrestricted free agent. They have one pending restricted free agent, and it's a big one. Casey Middlestad. Middlestad came over from Buffalo, played well during the regular season, but really hit his stride in the playoffs. And I think there's no reason to think Middlestad can't be a 65-plus point player for them next year, as long as he's playing the same role they did in the playoffs, right? But the cap space they have in July the 1st, and again, it probably doesn't include Landeskog in this calculation, $15,916,250, which, you know, almost $16 million is a lot, but Middlestad's going to eat some of that up. And then either you re-sign some of these players, which will eat some of that up, or you have to replace those players. Either way, that money will disappear pretty quickly. Now, if you're excited about the draft this year as an Avs fan, why? They don't have a first-round draft pick in 2025. They do have this year's first-round draft pick, so I guess that's a reason to watch. But they don't have a second or a third this year, and they don't have a second or a third in 2025. They don't have a third-round pick in 2026. This is all part and parcel of having a team that's a contender. You're going to trade your draft picks. While they currently have their first-round draft pick for this year, will they keep it through the draft table? Who knows? Maybe they try to move up. Maybe they try to move down. Maybe they do take that pick and they keep it. But this is going to be interesting to watch over the next year because Rantanen's an unrestricted free agent next summer. He's going to get paid. I would think around the same numbers as Pastrnak. Makar is a UFA in 2027. So while that's still 3 years down the road, dude's going to get paid. 3 years from now, with where the cap could be, he's going to make some serious cash. Georgiev is, as I previously mentioned, an unrestricted free agent next year. So, do they re-sign him? Do they sign him to a long-term deal? Do they feel like he's going to be that goaltender that can get them to the promised land and get them that next Stanley Cup? We'll see. And of course, Zach Parise retired, so I do need to do a Zach Parise career video. But Parise's retirement, he went to Colorado. He wanted a chance at a Stanley Cup before he retired, and it just didn't work out for him or the team. I thought Parise played relatively well, but yeah, this is a team that's in pretty good hands with Chris McFarland as the GM and Coach Bednar behind the bench. Bednar's been excellent, really, really excellent as a coach. I don't think he got out-coached in the last series against Dallas. I think Dallas just played better when they needed to, and I think they did get better goaltending. And so now it's a matter of the general manager giving Bednar a roster that can get back to that promised land and win a Stanley Cup in 2025. I do think they have a very good chance. I totally understand why the odds makers are going to have them as one of the favorites for next year, because on paper, and just when you look at what they did in 2022 and you look at the team now, there's no reason they can't do it again. But this league is very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult to win. It's very, very difficult to win a Stanley Cup. And then it's just as difficult to win it again. While teams have won it back-to-back, sure, it is not a sure thing, and it is not easy to win back-to-back. So nothing but respect for teams that have done it. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What would you fix with the Colorado Avalanche? Keeping in mind that with Taves and Makar on the blue line, and you've got Manson played pretty well back there too, and just it's a good blue line crew back there. Pretty good, solid top six forwards. Maybe the bottom six needs a little bit of work, but really, in all honesty, this is a really good team. How do you get them over the hump? That's my question for you. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.